So, in terms of who's going in this year, I think Dave Batista having one more run last year. Give me what I want, Batista. Give me what I want. Give me what I want. And now he wants a Hall of Fame ring, so he's getting one. He made the announcement that was his last match. He was very, very public about that, not in a negative way, just in a, I've done everything it is that I want to do in professional wrestling. You won't see me again in a wrestling ring. You won't see me again having another match. I wanted to have one more match with Triple H. I had one more match with Triple H. We had a story going in. I liked it. I'm all finished. I'm set. I'm good. And when you look at the career of Batista, I mean, how could you not put him in the Hall of Fame? You know, for that ruthless aggression era, he was one of the top stars. And it's interesting, too, because for guys my age, you know, we had the Attitude Era in high school. So that Batista era was when guys my age, we were in our 20s, we were young adults. We don't have that nostalgic childhood love for the era that other people might. And you don't really understand that until we get to the place where we are in 2019. And now, if you talk to people that are in their 20s, they grew up with Batista. Batista is an icon to that group of people. The people that are in their early 20s now, Batista was the biggest star in the world. You had Batista, you had Cena, you had Orton, Triple H. Those were your stars of the day. So, you know, and for anybody in the John Cena era, John Cena was such a big star for 10 full years that he eclipsed almost everybody. And not even intentionally, just due to the fact that there was just so much star power going on there. He was the attraction. So the fact that somebody in the midst of that John Cena era could break through and become a star themselves, I think that right there for Batista is a big deal. The fact that every time he's come back, it's been a moment. I was going to say every time he's come back, it's been welcomed, but it hasn't always been welcomed. However, here's the thing with Batista. This is how you know Batista is loved, right? Because, and I think the reason that he's loved is because of what he evolved into. We watched Batista come in as Deacon Batista. You know, he's just this muscle-bound dude that gets trained at, I believe he was trained in Ohio Valley Wrestling, way before NXT, but in WWE developmental. And he shows up on SmackDown pretty quick after the initial Raw SmackDown draft, when the Dudley boys have been separated, and Bubba Ray Dudley is on Monday Night Raw as a single star, and Devon Dudley has become the Reverend Devon on SmackDown, and a few weeks after his debut, he introduces the Deacon Batista. And it's Batista, but he's got like a, I think in my mind's eye, it's a blazer with the sleeves ripped off, and a big chain with a collection box on the end of it, and the Deacon Batista is there, and immediately you look at him like, whoa, who is this beast? Now, there are people that you've looked at and said, whoa, who is this beast? And nothing comes of it, you know? That initial, you have my attention, is not an instant recipe for success. But I think that we as fans got to watch the growth of Batista. And I think specifically the evolution of Batista when he was in Evolution started to turn a lot of people. I think if you watch Batista before he's in Evolution, if you watch what he goes through while he's in Evolution, and who he is as a performer when he gets out of Evolution, you look at somebody who has really just grown tremendously in a very short period of time. I think that Batista gained the respect of a lot of people the way he went out the first time, when he's sitting in his wheelchair with his arm in a sling, and he's whining, and he says, I quit. And he quits, but it's in character, and it's a story, but he was actually leaving, and the whole thing was great. I think the way Batista left the first time, a lot of people respected him for it. When Batista came back, the fact that his return did not go according to plan is not Batista's fault. It is the fault of, at the time, not having a pulse on the audience. That in that moment, the audience was hungry to see somebody like Daniel Bryan become a star, and they were more hungry for that than they were for seeing a former star return to reclaim glory. And I don't think that run should be remembered for it, it not being successful. Look, the beginning was wonky, Batista shows up in the Royal Rumble and he wins it, but he doesn't even have proper wrestling gear on. You know what I mean? He's just got those plain Muay Thai tights or whatever he was wearing. That wasn't the greatest thing in the world. But by the time you got to WrestleMania, a fantastic story had been told surrounding Batista. And that triple threat with Randy Orton, Batista, and Daniel Bryan, who earlier in the night had defeated Triple H at WrestleMania 30, is one of the greatest WrestleMania moments of all time. I mean, I think, in my opinion, when you talk about WrestleMania moments, of course, you start with WrestleMania 3. I think, Hogan passing the torch to the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 6 is a big moment. I think as we go forward, the next big moment, maybe Shawn and the Boyhood Dream. I know that was an attempt at a moment. Some people like it, some people don't. I think WrestleMania 14, Stone Cold beating Shawn Michaels is a moment. I think Hogan and The Rock obviously is a moment. But I think, you look, and Daniel Bryan winning that title is a huge moment. And Batista is not ancillary in that story. I think Batista being brought back and not being well received, because he's not who fans wanted at the time, actually makes the story better, because when we finally acknowledged what was going on and got to WrestleMania, it really made the story work. And I think coming off of WrestleMania, the reformation of Evolution and Blue Tista, I just loved that everybody was obsessed with the fact that he wore blue. I don't know if he likes that or not, but I think he should take pride in it, I mean, we go back to talking about Mattel. Mattel made a figure of it. I've got a Blue Tista figure on the shelf. I think it's great. Fashion forward. But I think that even when he left that time, I think Batista coming in, I think doing that one more reunion with Evolution, I think that it was Evolution versus The Shield. And when he left, and he left Triple H, it was kind of an acknowledgement of, I don't want anything to do with this. This whole thing didn't work. And I think he gained people's respect again after that. I believe that the SmackDown promo that he cut when Evolution was back together again, this is, 2 years ago or so, and he cut that promo on Triple H that felt like it was out of nowhere, off the cuff, was like, whoa, we want this badly. And I think that last run, working up to the match with Triple H, I think that the only hiccup in that was Batista was working as a heel, and he has built up so much love in the wrestling community that it became very difficult to boo that man. The wrestling fans that I talk to, there's a lot of love for Batista out there, and they should be. I think as big as the nWo is, because Batista's one man, I kind of hope Batista headlines the thing. You could definitely say that the nWo should, but I think it would be nice to let somebody who maybe wasn't a part of the Attitude Era headline it. The nWo gets a lot of credit, and they're deserving of it, but they get a lot of credit for what they do. I think Batista deserves to headline the thing. That's my opinion. Now we look at the nWo. The nWo is also getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I kind of feel like it would be awesome. Maybe just have one ring. And if you have one ring for the nWo, that's the question. If you have one ring for the nWo, who do you give it to? Do you give it to the first person who showed up, and that's Scott Hall? Do you give it to somebody who really became one of the leaders, certainly the leader of the Wolfpack, Kevin Nash? Do you give it to Hulk Hogan, who set them on their way by turning heel and shocking the world? Or do you give it to Eric Bischoff? Because not only was Eric Bischoff a member of the nWo, but it was also his creation, right? He was in charge of WCW at the time. The nWo that's going into the Hall of Fame is Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and X Pac. X Pac, but because he's in the nWo, he's X Pac. And that is controversial to a lot of people. people are, specifically the Sean Waltman inclusion has been a huge topic of conversation. Some people don't think there should be a fourth member. And look, you know, when you're talking about going into the Hall of Fame, I think if you just said the NWO is going into the Hall of Fame, it's Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall. I don't think anybody's complaining. I think everybody agrees on that nobody is complaining if those three go into the Hall of Fame. But I also think if you have 4 NWO members going into the Hall of Fame, X Pac is definitely the 4th member. And some people disagree with that. Some people say it should be the Big Show because he was the actual 4th member of the NWO. The Giant becoming a member of the NWO was a huge deal because he was a WCW created star. And that was the first WCW created star and let the world know that, hey, anybody could join at any time. And, you know, the Giant was a main event guy and he was amazing, you know. Some people think that, you know, and then Ted DiBiase is technically the 5th member of the NWO. And Sean Waltman is the 6th member of the NWO, hence SYXX 6. But I think, and a lot of people I've read too think that Eric Bischoff should be the 4th person to go in. It should be Hogan, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and Eric Bischoff because, again, Eric Bischoff created the NWO and represented everything that WCW was at the time. I don't think it should be Eric Bischoff, and I don't think it should be the Giant. I think a 4th member should be Sean Waltman. And that's because I think Sean Waltman represents the NWO as closely as Scott Hall, as closely as anyone can to Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and Hulk Hogan. I think that regardless of what anybody wants to say, the NWO in its incarnation and the NWO that really caught fire was the WWE is coming in and invading WCW. And nobody associated with WCW will really say that. They'll go like, oh, well, it was people who didn't like WCW. It was people who thought they were mistreated in WCW. It was this, it was that, but that's not true. I mean, I remember Bash at the Beach 1996. I didn't order the pay-per-view. And I called my friend who did. And I said, who won, WWF or WCW? And he said, WWF won. But they're not that anymore. You know, it was before the NWO had even been named. Hulk Hogan turned on him. And I'm like, oh, of course, Hulk Hogan joined Razor Ramon and Diesel because he's a WWE guy too. You know, that's what the whole thing was. I think that the NWO is very ingrained in a WWE invasion of WCW. And I think the NWO is also very ingrained in the Clique, as is DX. DX and the NWO, the Venn diagram comes together with those Clique members in the middle. The hand gesture, the too sweet hand gesture, that was a Clique hand gesture before it was an NWO hand gesture. So I think the fact that X Pac was somebody who left WWE to go join the NWO, like Scott Hall and Kevin Nash did. I think the fact that he was a Clique member, like Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. And look, I mean, I think the fact that he's just an awesome dude who should be celebrated as often as humanly possible and is an example of everything that can go right after everything goes wrong. I mean, anybody that's down in the dirt, anybody that's down on their luck, look at Sean Waltman. Think about his story. Read up on him. Listen to his podcast. Realize the person that you see now and the person that you saw 10 years ago even. 10, 15 years ago. I mean, it's night and day. You talk about a transformation of a man. He's a role model. And I think he should get as much spotlight as humanly possible. I think he deserves to go in. Look, I mean, one of the most, when you look at NWO t-shirts, right? There was the basic NWO shirt. There was the Outsider shirt. There was the Hollywood Hogan shirt. And then after that, after the NWO logo, the Outsiders, and the Hollywood t-shirts, the other big NWO t-shirt, the NWO t-shirt that I had was the one with the big 6-ball on the back. That shirt was so popular at the time that I had the NWO logo shirt and I had the NWO logo shirt that had a 6-ball on the back. Those are the shirts that I had. I had the NWO shirt. I had the original Outsider shirt with a picture of Scott Hall and Kevin Nash on it, and then I had the NWO shirt with the 6 ball on the back of it. I think that there are people that are not giving enough credit to what 6 did in the NWO. Let's be honest. 6 brought an entirely different style of wrestling to the NWO. Go back and watch the first NWO pay-per-view, Sold Out, SOULED. There is one, count 'em, one good match on the entire pay-per-view. And guess whose match it is? X Pac. Suck it. It's 6's match. It's the only good match on the whole pay-per-view. And the fact that he left and joined DX, and the reason it was such a big deal that he joined DX was because he was just coming from the NWO as 6. He was 6 leaving the NWO and showing up in a WWE ring. 6 leaving WCW and showing up in a WWE ring as X Pac was one of the one of the moments where you go, oh, maybe WCW is losing power, right? When WCW is grabbing hot names from WWE, you got guys like Kevin Nash and Scott Hall and Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage and all these guys that could go wherever they want. And they decide to go to WCW. It makes WCW look like a hotter product. Sean Waltman did that at one point. But Sean Waltman was really the first to go, you know what? I'm going to abandon ship in WCW, and I'm going to show up to WWE and make an impact. And he was a big star in WWE just as he was in the NWO. So I think that the argument that he is not the 4th member is ridiculous, insane, and absurd. I think that if you're arguing only 3 men should go into the Hall of Fame representing the NWO, okay, you know, I wouldn't be mad if Hall, Nash, and Hogan just went in. But if you're like, no, we're going to add another member, then yeah, it should be X Pac. Personally, I think you should take everybody in the NWO and put them all on that stage. Or if you're going to do it like you did it last year, you're going to have a ring, do it World War III style. So you have 3 rings. I want everybody who was ever in the NWO on that Hall of Fame stage. Everybody. And make rings for all of them. I mean, some of them it's going to be ridiculous because then Stevie Ray becomes a 2-time Hall of Famer. But for other people, I mean, when is Masahiro Chono going to get his WWE Hall of Fame ring? Probably never. Is the Great Muta going into the Hall of Fame? He should. But will he? I don't know. He's a member of NWO Japan, though. He should go in. Is Scott Flash Norton going into the WWE Hall of Fame? Probably never. But if the NWO goes into the Hall of Fame, he was a member. Get Buff Bagwell on that stage. Virgil gets his ring. Virgil may become a 2-time Hall of Famer if the whole NWO goes in. Put the Wolfpack in there. K-Dog gets a ring. Disco Inferno gets a ring. Sting gets a ring, not only as Sting, but he gets a ring as Crow Sting that he got before as a singles, and now he gets a Wolfpack Sting ring. Sting goes in the red and black. Wolfpack, baby, for life. Somos unos vatos locos. NWO Sting, the fake Sting, he gets to go in the Hall of Fame. The LWO is going in too, because that is also the NWO. That means Eddie Guerrero gets another posthumous ring. Psychosis gets a ring. La Parka gets a ring. El Dandy gets a ring. It's about time El Dandy had a Hall of Fame ring. By the way, NWO Silver is going in too. 2000 NWO is going in too. Jeff Jarrett gets himself another ring. Bret Hart gets another ring. That's 3 rings for Bret. I think that would make Bret the first 3-time Hall of Famer. Basically, the only people not going into the Hall of Fame, Dusty would get another ring. Dusty's NWO for life. Because when you're NWO for life. Put them all in. Put all of the NWO members. Big Boss Man gets another ring. Eric Bischoff gets his ring, of course. Larry Zbyszko, no ring for you. DDP, no ring for you. Ric Flair, no ring for you. I think everybody else gets a ring. Goldberg, no ring for you. Kurt Hennig gets another ring. Hell yeah, he does. He was NWO for life, just like everybody else. IRS gets a ring. Go on, get that ring. Or, you know what you could do? have every member of the NWO ever and bring them into the Hall of Fame. Actually, I don't think Booker T was ever in the NWO. So Booker T, I'm sorry, you don't get another ring because you're not NWO for life. You have to be NWO for life if you get a ring. But I think every single NWO member should be on that stage. Rick Rude gets a ring. All of them. Lex Luger gets a ring. Miss Elizabeth gets a ring. Bryan Adams gets a ring. And then the WWE members of the NWO get rings too. I mean, Shawn Michaels is getting another ring. Was Booker T in the WWE NWO? I think he was. Booker, I take that back. Another ring for you. Everybody in the NWO gets rings. Why not? Another ring, of course, for the madness, baby. Macho Man Randy Savage, he gets a ring. I can't wait to see it. Big Papa Pump gets a ring, that's for sure. I don't think Rick ever got one. Not that I remember, anyway. I just can't wait to hear El Dandy's speech. I think it'll be great. I'm seeing if I missed anybody. Oh, of course. Brutus the Barber Beefcake, that's a second ring for you. One more ring for the Beefcake. The Disciple's going in. Nick Patrick is going in. Dennis Rodman is going into the Hall of Fame. It's going to be great. Torrie Wilson and David Flair. And, I mean, Rick Steiner never fully joined, it said. So Torrie Wilson and David Flair get to go into the Hall of Fame. Oh, I think the NWO girls get to go into the Hall of Fame, too. That means Midaja. That means Pamela Paulshock. Ron and Don Harris joined the NWO. Yep, Ron and Don are going in. Tylene Buck and April Hunter. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Of course they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait. Because when you're NWO for life.